Hello and welcome to Attacking Third. We are live on YouTube. We've got a news and notes episode for everyone. So hello and good morning and welcome to you. If you're in the chat, subscribe to us, like this video, and drop us a note in the live chat. We want to hear from you. Hello and welcome into Attacking Third. I'm Sandra Herrera, lead NWSL writer for CBS Sports. Joined today, as always, by my colleague and co-host, Lisa Roman, broadcaster and analyst for CBS Sports. On today's segment, we're chatting all things news and notes across the globe of women's soccer. Can't wait to get into it. Before we do, quick reminder, leave us a rating and review on your favorite podcast platform. We're also on YouTube. Subscribe to us right here at youtube.com/attackingthird to get all sorts of exclusive content, previews, recaps, interviews, all right here with us on A3. The NWSL regular season is in full swing, and Paramount Plus is your home for the 2023 NWSL season. And Paramount Plus is giving away 1 free month to kickstart you for the NWSL season. So use promo code NWSL2023. That's NWSL2023 for 1 free month of Paramount Plus. We've got a lot of things to get into today. We've got some NWSL news. We've got an expansion team to talk about. We've got some Women's Super League updates to give. We got an international window coming up. There's a lot to get through, Lisa. I'm happy to do it with you. How you doing?
There's so much to talk about today. I mean, we're really hitting every single corner of the globe when we talk about football today. Of course, we're going to start locally in the States, in the West Coast with expansion news out of the NWSL. But of course, it's good to chat with you about this. We're actually hitting on a lot of fun things today, too, because we get to do a little kit fashion. We get to talk about expansion. There's a lot of good things in today's episode. So thanks, everyone, for joining us. If you're with us live on YouTube, we appreciate it. It's a good week. Let's get into it because there's a lot. Our rundown is hefty today.
Oh yeah, we want to make sure we get this in and touch on all the different topics that we've got in our content plan here. We have to start with probably the biggest news of the week. The week kicked off really with the news of expansion for NWSL. It's coming back to the Bay Area. The NWSL officially announced that they have awarded expansion to the Bay Area. They will become the 14th team in the NWSL in the 2024 season. The team's ownership group, the investment, is really led by Sixth Street, partnered with 4 former United States women's national team members, Brandi Chastain, Leslie Osbourn, Danielle Slaton, and Aly Wagner. It is a record expansion fee of $53 million, a total $125 million investment for this group coming in. It is an exciting time for California. It is the 3rd California team in just 2 years to get introduced into the league. And I think now you can look at that very great, very long, large state and say, okay, we're going to have NWSL markets throughout California. And we kind of felt like maybe this was going to get announced, sooner rather than later. My immediate reaction to this, Lisa, it threw me all the way back to when you and I had a great conversation with Brandi Chastain and Aly Wagner about all things Bay Area and the possibility of its return to NWSL. And it's official. They're here.
It is very, very official. This announcement coming early Tuesday morning yesterday, April 4th, and really exciting time. As you mentioned, Leslie Osbourn, Aly Wagner, Danielle Slaton, Brandi Chastain, like these are incredible trailblazers. And yes, they all went to Santa Clara, the Bay Area. But that's then where they, most of them have decided to settle down and kind of start their lives because that's how much the area means to them. And even when we talked to Brandi Chastain and Aly Wagner about like 8 or 9 months ago in June last year, we had them on right when the very small inception of NWSL to the Bay Area became an idea. They talked so much about how they saw Angel City and what they did with multiple investors and how they could start something from the ground up. It didn't have to be where a club formerly was, and that's how the expansion would happen. they were inspired. They talked to Julie Foudy and Julie Ehrman and other investors at Angel City and kind of said, hey, what was your foundation? How did you do this? Because we've got ideas and we want to do this. And it's very cool and inspiring, I think, for me, that they were able to have this small inception of idea, like, let's bring professional women's football to the Bay Area outside of San Francisco. And now they're able to do it. And for this to become the 14th expansion team in the NWSL is also pretty incredible for this league to continue to grow. And you talked about it's pretty much all made possible because of Sixth Street, which is an investment firm.
Yeah.
And they have a lot of investments in like so many different sporting things around the world. The Dallas Cowboys, the San Antonio Spurs, I think Real Madrid, like they touch every single corner of the sporting world. And the fact that they are inspired by the NWSL and women's football in America just proves how much it's going to grow. And like, we don't even have to talk about that here, because if you like, Sandra and I are on the same page. And if you listen to us and you join us live, you're already aware that women's soccer is the bomb. So like, you don't need to be convinced of that. But the fact that I think the numbers are very, very interesting, because this is $53 million that this team and this group, Sixth Street, is spending on this league expansion. The most recent team to be expanded, Kansas City, $5 million. Yeah. That's almost 10 times more money than Kansas City in 2021. And the growth, and like that just shows how lucrative this is and how
the amount of time you're leaving out the timeline. We're talking like a couple years, like Kansas City's inclusion into the league.
2021
was in 2021, and we're looking ahead to 2024. So in just like a 2 to 3 year span, to go from 5 million to, like you said, over 5 times that amount. It's unreal. It's a record-breaking moment. I think it sends a certain message to really other markets out there that are interested or even curious about getting a foothold within the league. You better come correct when you're coming with a bid to this league. Can't be. It's not. It's not in the single digits anymore. It's in the double digits.
Exactly. It's a very lucrative project, and it's only going to get more and more expensive, right? As the years go on, as the bar is raised for the type of facilities that are needed to have an NWSL team. But with all of this announcements, Jessica Berman and the NWSL actually made their first statement in acknowledging the goal of how many teams the league wants to have, because at the draft in January at media availability, they kind of said, yeah, there's no limit. We don't know. Of course, why reveal your cards that early on? But now that we've got 13 in Utah, 14 in the Bay Area expansion sides, they put out a statement saying that the NWSL remains engaged in the expansion process with eyes towards adding a 15th team and a 16th team. So that's the first time that we've really heard a goal of 16 expansion sides, which to go from 12 to 16 in the matter of years is fantastic, because 2024 we'll see the inclusion of Utah and Bay Area. But the fact that they want to get to 16 is fantastic. It's the NWSL is all over the country. It's amazing.
Yeah. And so I'm looking, we have the map up right now if you're joining us on YouTube, and that's what I'm reacting to. But you take a look at that literal West Coast, all the way up top, starting with the Pacific Northwest, and now all the way down through to San Diego. 5 teams lining up on the West Coast, but match that up with the East Coast as well, and the possibilities there. And hopefully we get to see some more teams sprinkled in the middle, just speaking as a Midwesterner, we'll see. But like I said, like I mentioned already, like these bids that came in, even for just these more recent announcements of expansions, right? This announcement of the Bay Area's return comes like just a few weeks after the official return of Utah Royals. And prior to these 2 announcements, when you and I were in DC for the 2022 championship, there was still a lot of chatter about expansion. And even then, Commissioner Berman saying, hey, we've got a lot of bids to go through. We have to comb through them. We have to narrow them down because there's so many. So I would imagine that after this round of expansion and them making a specific note in their release about keeping an eye on the future for a possible 15th and 16th team, that those conversations took place with those markets that presented bids, where it's like, if maybe here's some areas where you need to work on if you want to resubmit a bid in the future. But it's an exciting time. I think expansion always, gets folks excited and reinvigorated about the league. And it does sort of, like you mentioned, it was last June that we had this interview with Wagner and Chastain, and to just sort of see all this come full circle, it's exciting. And I think the other remaining things that will come with this announcement, right? I think you're going to look at what is potentially going to be their club name, the announcement of colors, the crest, all of that kind of stuff, the hires that they might make to help navigate and plan and grow a roster, the GM role, the head coach role, the coaching staff, et cetera, et cetera. But I think very, targeted, kind of smart way to roll out this investment. Former players knowing that they needed to make sure that they were partnered with a pretty lucrative and expansive ownership group. So to link up with the Sixth Street investors and then partnered with the national team players and putting out how they are going to have, specific members on the board, who's going to represent the governing board. There was a lot of, I think they did a good job, I think, within this announcement to answer a lot of those preliminary questions that come from a new team. Like, who are the faces? Who are the names behind the ownership groups? Who's going to have those responsibilities on the governing board? A co-chair, et cetera, et cetera. We've got everything written up for you on .com. So make sure, when you're looking up your NWSL news, you check out cbssports.com, and you can get all that information. We break it down by the ownership group. You could see who's involved in it, and a little bit of the history too, because that is where my reaction went to as well. I was like, wow, like, it's coming back. The Bay Area has typically been a part of the previous women's professional soccer leagues that have existed in this country, whether it was WUSA or WPS. I'm rocking my Cyberway, my little Cyber Race scarf right now on the wall, just because I was so excited for the announcement. Very excited for the players who've been attached to the project, and have been working towards getting this moment and getting this decision announced.
It's so exciting, and it's so fast. Honestly, it's so fast, because January 2024 is when players, a team, coach will report to the Bay Area for preseason. That is less than a year.
2024 is literally next year.
Literally next January. Next January is when the players will report. So, like, there's a lot to do. There's a lot to do between now and then. The fact that it's getting announced in April, 3 weeks into the NWSL season, and these investors, everyone involved they've got to pick it up now. I mean, there's a lot of work to come of them, and they talked about it. They had press conferences yesterday about this, and they knew that they want to build from the ground up. And man, it starts today. Get the hammer and nail out, because January 2024 is going to come very fast.
And we'll have all sorts of updates for everyone along the way, and our reactions to it, of course. We also want to give a reaction to another bit of news, different from expansion, but felt it was important to talk about on the show, happening over the course of week 2, and we wanted to give it its proper and due spotlight in our news and notes segment. So we're going to chat a little bit about the recent allegations that were floating around really on social media, primarily by Mykiaa Minniss, the mom of Mykiaa Minniss, a recent 2023 draft pick, and pretty serious allegations here. The defender was selected number 35 overall by Kansas City Current, and within this lengthy statement, there's a lot of concerns throughout it, basically about mistreatment that Mykiaa suffered while she was trying to navigate her preseason with Kansas City Current. specifically. And within it, it talks about just the lack of care, lack of logistics, really, for this player as she tried to make a place for herself on a team. I think you get drafted, you check off box one of trying to maybe, pursue a dream that you have.
Mhm.
And that next step is you get an invite into a preseason with the team that drafted you, and you try to go ahead and make a name for yourself. You try to go ahead and crack that roster. But two very different experiences that Nicole Minniss highlights within this, because Mykiaa ends up having what she considers a very poor experience with Kansas City, but then also has a different experience with Orlando Pride. And I think that's important to know within this. And there's a lot of concerns, I think, to note within this, because I think as the public got wind of this note, a lot of red flags went up, because we're essentially in year two, I believe, of the NWSL CBA, and there are things within this where you're like, this actually doesn't line up with what some of the protocols and procedures are supposed to happen now with new players as they enter the league. And I think that's where folks are looking at, and they have those concerns. There was a small statement from the players union that they said they are aware of it, that they want to continue to investigate those allegations. There was reporting out of Kansas City with a statement from Jessica Berman, who was at Kansas City's home opener. Meg Linehan reporting that Berman was quoted as saying, "I was on the plane yesterday flying to Kansas City when the post came out, and it was immediately brought to my attention. When I landed, I called Megan Burke, who is the executive director of the PA. I spoke to Angie and Chris Long, owners of Kansas City Current, and we were on the phone very early this morning, all parties together. We share a commitment in that we all take this really seriously. We want to understand what happened in this circumstance. We're incredibly sad that that was her experience, and we want to see how we can improve in the future and learn from this. So I have a lot of confidence with the people that are around the table, both proactively to create positive environments, as well as for the people who are prepared to be responsive in real time when there are challenges, and we're committed to seeing it through." So that's really where things are at right now. There hasn't been a further announcement about details of an investigation or results of that. But just really, really sucks to see that this is like kind of still an experience that a player has to
Right.
go through in light of some of the strides that have been made in the build up to this season.
Yeah, I mean, really devastating, these allegations, right? Like having to not feel supported or accepted by a team that you were drafted by, meaning that they have a little bit of interest in you. I think there's still more to this story to come, because the statements that came out were from Mykiaa's mom, and it was text written, put out by social media from her Twitter, kind of written as a letter stating like to whom it may concern. So it wasn't directed necessarily at the league or at Kansas City. I think it was more just kind of Nicole Minniss putting this out there for people to see, as in to whom it may concern. And the fact that it did gain a lot of traction, and there are some questions being asked, the fact that media did their due diligence to ask Jessica Berman about this situation, to ask Matt Potter, the Kansas City Current head coach, about this situation and what is to happen. I mean, we've seen how the NWSL PA has handled situations like this in the past. And I'm talking specifically about the PA, not the league, not individual clubs, but the PA. And they support and they have the backs of their players, whether they played for one day in preseason, whether they were drafted and never showed up. I'm not sure the specific limitations there, but it seems as though the PA is involved. And if this is something that has been reoccurring, it's the first time it happened, or maybe it was a one-off thing, or maybe the allegations are a little bit different than initially laid out there, there's still something to be uncovered there to make sure this doesn't happen moving forward. And that's the point of the CBA, and that's the point of the NWSL PA. So more to come from this story for sure. There will be more that has happened. Hopefully we hear directly from the league, directly from Kansas City about this experience and about these allegations. But yeah, I think it's very interesting that in the statement, Minniss talks about the parity between the Kansas City Current experience and the Orlando Pride experience, because after she was at Kansas City for preseason and she ultimately got cut, she tried to be a non-roster invite to Orlando, and she was only there for a couple days before she decided she needed to take a step back and own personal decision to say, I need to put my mental health and my physical health first. I'm not going to go forward with this. But the fact that she still was able to have both those experiences is interesting, and I think it tells a different story than just the one experience of going to one club.
Yeah, it's it was tough to read that. I was just like, God, like, here's another bad experience. I think that's also something to maybe put in perspective. I think a lot of times, especially coming off these last 2 years of covering the leagues, I think a lot of times there's a instant reaction or a sort of an instinctual kind of jump that people make. It's like scandal, and you like throw it on, you like
Mhm.
slap it on there immediately. And I think, like you said, I think there's still actually there's multiple like moving parts to this right now, and
Yeah.
then there's just not a lot of information other than what is out there at the moment. Um, but even as the supporters group sort of putting their voice on it as well, when it comes to Kansas City, as a franchise as a whole, just they made reference to the fact that it was a tough week for them as supporters because they heard now two different allegations of poor experiences. Lynn Williams has a podcast.
Mhm.
Lynn Williams going on Snacks and talking a little bit about her trade from Kansas City to Gotham and how that was not exactly what would one could consider a pleasant experience, and the supporters putting their voice on it, right, and saying, hey, this is now twice in a week where we're hearing poor player experiences. We hope that this gets looked into, and it is, I think, at this point, and that'll be sort of the next phase of this for us to sort of see what comes of it and the reactions that we're going to have on that as well. So stay tuned, right, for this at the moment. But even though we've got expansion and then we've got that little bit of Kansas City Current news to chat about, we've got to talk about some news coming out of Orlando. Even though there's 2 weeks already that have gone by in regular season play, there's still moves to be made. I feel like we were just talking about this on our previous news and notes episode, where there was a trade between Angel City and Orlando Pride, and part of that was $70,000 going one way, and then an international spot going the other. And here we have Orlando Pride with the announcement that they have signed Canadian forward Amanda Allen, her first professional contract for the 18-year-old with the Orlando Pride, bulking up maybe some extra pieces for the attack there. And I think at this point we can hardly blame him, right?
Yeah.
Like I said, we're talking about 2 weeks. They're coming off of some frustrating results, and looks like Seb Hines and Haley Carter are looking at different areas and ways to try and continue to build up their roster. But another young piece, I think, is
Yes.
maybe the important component here. There's it's just another perhaps player that you can build with and around,
Mhm.
because they've already got a little bit of a young core right now at Orlando Pride, and the length of this contract, I think, too, is something to important to
Yes.
know.
I agree. I think the fact that it's a 3-year contract through the 2025 season is massive for this 18-year-old. Alan also most recently getting called up to the senior national team with Canada Soccer. So currently training with them as it is an international window. And this will be her first senior national team call up. But she has so much youth Canada experience, right? She in 2022 at the CONCACAF U17 championship, she won bronze in the DR. She scored goals throughout that. I mean, this is definitely a big attacking piece that Orlando looks to add to their roster. But again, it's young. I mean, when we did our team by team previews, we talked about Orlando and how they are a team that is in the rebuild phase, and they've now got Seb Hines as the head coach, and it'll be his first full year at the helm of Orlando. But can they lay down the first level of foundation to continue to build? or is it going to be a back to ground zero? And sometimes I have questions when I look at a young player like Amanda Allen being just 18 years old, and how much is that going to impact the team this year? And although Allen is incredibly talented and she's got international experience, it's a lot to be said to ask an 18-year-old to kind of use the team to build around them. So still a lot of question marks at Orlando, but this is a step in a great direction. I think the future is very bright for Allen in the NWSL, and with Orlando for sure.
Yeah, I think it's a good piece. I think it's a smart pickup. I think if the idea is that you're fully taking that real first step into a rebuild for the Pride, you maybe want to build around young players who are going to be bought into this kind of longer term project. I mean, if she's already playing at the international level, I would imagine that this is a player that's likely ready to go pro and take that next step. So I like it. I'm excited for the deal, and curious about it as well, in terms of where maybe Coach Hines has, can see where this player is going to get plugged in for the team. But we likely won't see that until well after the international break. So we'll stay tuned on that. And we've got more to chat about because we're mentioning the international break. So we're going to take things international. So stick with us after a quick break.
People like you have fun in high school. People like me survive.
He told me exactly what you did to get that jacket.
There are a lot of kids in Rydell who are sick of feeling like they're not welcome.
I've decided I'm done getting pushed around.
Maybe that's what being fearless is anyway. Maybe that's what being a pink lady is.
I'm starting to like school.
All right, we're back. Let's chat all things Women's Super League. What's going on in WSL? I think we got to start with Sam Kerr. That's where we got to start. We got to start with Sam Kerr and 50 goals in Barclays Women's Super League, the 9th player to reach this accolade. What a time.
How exciting for Sam Kerr. It's amazing. She's just the 9th player to reach 50 Super League goals. She is the 2nd quickest after Mykiaa, and only the 2nd player with Chelsea to do so after Fran Kirby. The fact, though, is that Sam Kerr has only been in the Super League for 3 years, and she reaches this 50 goal record. I mean, we saw her in 62 appearances over 3 years, 50 goals. That's incredible. Those stats are incredible. And now NWSL fans that saw Kerr play in the NWSL and with Chicago specifically, like, they know what Kerr can do and they know how many records she can break. But this is just fantastic. We had to highlight it, a legend, Sam Kerr, for sure.
I mean, Kerr you're talking about the timeline, right? 3 years already reaching this goal in Women's Super League. And guess what? 3 years away from NWSL, and no one is coming close to breaking the 77 goals that she racked up while here in the United States and playing for multiple different teams in NWSL. So I'm curious if we'll see players get closer to that, right? We've already talked about Lynn Williams. I think we're keeping an eye on Alex Morgan. I mean, we were just talking about Sophia Smith, the youngest player to reach 25 goals in the fastest way possible. I mean, only a few years for Sophia Smith in the league as well. So we'll see. I think, look, we're talking a lot about expansion. We're talking about a lot of other things. I mean, Sam Kerr locked up on a contract with Chelsea through June 2024, I believe. And look, anything is possible. And maybe Sam Kerr wants to rack up more goals in Women's Super League, or maybe she might want to come back to NWSL and rack up even more goals back here, mentioning in an interview, I think not too long ago, saying like she eventually along the line, she'd like to get somewhere warm. And there's 1, 2, now 3 possible California teams. I'm just gonna let's have fun with it and put it out there now. Sam Kerr to the Bay. Let's see what happens there.
Yes, I love that. I mean, I think it's possible because Sam Kerr, she holds the record for NWSL goals. Lynn Williams, I think, is right behind her at 79. Sam Kerr at 77, and then 59 at Lynn Williams, and then Christine Sinclair, I think, is also at 59. They're tied for second right now. Jess McDonald, Alex Morgan, they're all right there at the top of the list. But perhaps Sam will play she'll finish this year in the Super League. She'll rack up obviously a couple more goals. She'll just dominate in the Super League. Then she'll come back. I love it. Kerr to the Bay Area. I'm all about it. And then she will never lose her title of most goals in the NWSL because she'll return before anyone can do it.
Look at us just causing chaos early in the morning. And it's like, if we got to go live, we might as well be a little chaotic. But look, I think she's got some things on her European to-do list. And one of those might be chasing a Champions League title. And Chelsea is fully in the mix for that. And we'll have to stay tuned and see how that works out for the Blues. But congratulations to Sam Kerr. We're going to keep it international. We want to talk a little bit about how Sweden is now the host of the 2025 UEFA Women's Euro. That's an exciting time. We just came out of a very cool and awesome Euro experience just last summer. And now Sweden get the honors to host that tournament. I have to imagine that after witnessing all the soccer that came out of the tournament last summer, multiple host cities were eager to try to get their stamp on this tournament. But going to Switzerland.
Yeah, I think there was 3 major bids ultimately to get the Women's Euro, and Switzerland, of course, beating out the other 3 bids. It'll be a 16-team event, as always, in the Women's Euros. The last time Switzerland hosted any major soccer football tournament was in 2008. Wow, I'm so used to saying 2023. So that was the men's Euros alongside Australia, where they co-hosted. So this time it'll just be Switzerland. Very historic, really exciting. It's hopefully this is how the league the global game of football continues to develop and grow. If we can get it in Switzerland, and we are, it's 2025. It'll be a big year. I'm excited for it. Sooner than we think too.
Maybe we're going to have, I know we're talking about expansion in 2024, and it's just that's just next year. And so that means we'll have eyes on Switzerland just the year after. So it's it's just definitely not this very long and too long into the future lens that we're staring down. But I'm excited for it. Hope we get not a repeat, but an even better version, right, of what we witnessed in the Euros last summer. Let's chat a little bit about France, because we need to talk about their new team manager. Herve Renard, the new France team manager, already making some smiles happen. Let's just call it like we see it, because when this roster dropped for France, there were a lot of familiar names on there. Probably the biggest one is Wendy Renard. And there was a lovely image of the two of them meeting and shaking hands as the camps were kicking out. There you go. We got it up for you on our YouTube episode. But I feel like that's maybe just the beginning, which is wild to think about, because this team is trying to prepare for a World Cup that's going to kick off in July, and it is April that they're all getting to meet and gather together for the first time. But we've seen or heard that this is a program and a coach that is interested in continuing to sort of mend some of those broken relationships from former prominent veteran players. I mean, Eugenie Le Sommer is also back in this camp. This was a player who had an extended absence and had no longer received call-ups from previous manager Diacre. And so just a couple of those, just looking at those two players and making their return. I mean, I would anticipate that he might want to get somebody like Amandine Henry involved in these camps as well. Another one of the players who was kind of vocal about the not so good experiences or discomfort that they felt by the current culture at the time, and another player who had no longer received call-ups as well into this one. So I think just looking at that initial list of players for this training camp, the fact that it was going to have a Wendy Renard, the fact that it was going to have a Eugenie Le Sommer back into the mix, I think was already really promising for this group and their build up to the World Cup. So I think right now maybe it's just a matter of like how quickly, they're all going to get on the same page essentially.
Yeah, that's really it, because it happens so fast. I mean, I feel like we've been talking about the FFF for weeks now, but Herve Renard basically resigned from being the Saudi Arabia men's head coach. And then it was announced on Thursday of last week that Renard would be the new French Federation women's national team head coach through this year. Friday, he announced his roster. So already the conversations, I mean, and we talked about Wendy Renard and how she said, if Corinne Diacre is out and it's Renard in, like, that's a different story. That's a different situation. And immediately after it was announced on Thursday, the response from a lot of the French women's players were that they were happy with this decision. It was mainly that they didn't want to play under Diacre, which we know they came out and they were very, very vocal about that. And Diacre removing prominent players from the roster like Le Sommer, and the fact that after 24 hours after being named the French head coach, he has already welcomed back in someone like a Wendy Renard, Eugenie Le Sommer. I think that this, although it's such a quick turnaround between April 3rd, right, April 4th, and all of this happening to the World Cup that kicks off July 20th, the fact that there's already immediate steps being taken in the first 24 hours after this head coach is named, I think is a very, very, very good sign for France, for the fan base, for this team. Now, can they get all on the same page? How much is going to change? There's still a lot of question marks to come, but some of these answers will be made clear because France has friendlies coming up during this international window that's right now. So April 7th, France will play against Colombia, and then on April 11th against Canada, the Olympic champions. So two really good tests of this France team and kind of how they come, but how they come about. But I'm happy for them. I'm happy that Wendy Renard is back in the mix, and Eugenie Le Sommer. That is good. That's where these players belong to be. But I just hope it kind of all stays that way. But it seems to be positive from the players' perspective these first couple of days for sure.
Yeah, hopefully they just sort of take all that and sort of ride with that new momentum that they've got. Hopefully the concept of like a clean slate is something that exists at the moment for the coach and the players. And right when they announced that he was going to be the new manager, you and I know were like, okay, so this Canada friendly is on, it's game on, right?
Yeah.
Like we were very excited about that as well, because unfortunately, these two programs had similar disputes, but some differences as well. Maybe not with France, it was more perhaps coach and team culture related, and for Canada Soccer it's an ongoing dispute with the federation, which is just like this very familiar storyline that we hear from a lot of programs. And unfortunately it just really, really sucks that it's some of these some really prominent programs, and B, it's like this is something that we're like talking about in the buildup for the World Cup just months away. So there was some curiosity of like if whether things would kind of get ironed out before these two would have to meet. But Canada already in France, and these two will go head to head later on. It's going to be an exciting international window for sure. For a lot of teams, the last international window before a final World Cup roster is named. So we'll keep our eyes on that as well. And we're going to look ahead a little bit on the United States women's national team side of things. We're going to chat about a couple different bits of news there. So stick with us after a quick break.
Now streaming on Paramount Plus.
We should go to the Super Bowl.
I'm in.
Inspired by a true story.
I'm taking this one. It's cute.
One trip.
Come on, ladies.
Can change your life.
I'm at a party with a bunch of kids.
I'm 36. I'm a man.
You're working on it.
Lily Tomlin, Jane Fonda, Rita Moreno, and Sally Field.
This has been the best weekend of my whole life.
Why is champagne such a violent beverage?
80 for Brady. Rated PG-13. Now streaming on Paramount Plus.
All right. The United States Women's National Team Soccer PA has announced some new positions. Tierna Davidson has replaced Sam Mewis as the third member of the USWNT PA. Mewis opted to end her 4-term tenure as VP/treasurer and is not going to rerun for office in 2023. And Becky Sauerbrunn will remain president. It is her 8th term at the role, and Crystal Dunn will stay on as vice president secretary for a 3rd term. So congratulations to all the players and their new terms with the PA. I like Davidson in this role. I think folks they look at that and they're just like, oh, it's a very young player, but Tierna Davidson with some experience behind her already at this point. I think we talked about that in the build up to this recent international window, how like this player is making their return from a lengthy ACL injury. And it's so wild to think about someone like a Davidson or even a Mal Pugh. And these are like still considered younger pieces of this national team program. And yet each of them already have like a World Cup under their belt. Tierna Davidson had the extended experience of going to the Tokyo Olympic Games, earning a bronze medal. Like these are players, even though they're in their early 20s, still have pretty late.
I mean, she was in France. Davidson was in France as the youngest player on that roster, 20 years old. She's been around, although she is incredibly young still, but she's 24 right now, 25, I believe. She's been around and she's seen a lot. And the fact that she was elected as an officer for the National Team Players Association. Like you don't just raise your hand and say, hey, I want to do this. You have to be elected. You're a jury of your peers essentially has to say, yes, we agree and we approve of this. Says how much Davidson does in the locker room, on the pitch, off the pitch, as a vocal leader, as an organizer, and especially that this election comes for Davidson right after she hasn't been there for a year. I mean, we just mentioned it. She suffered an ACL tear. She wasn't with the team, kind of working her way back in. And that's the kind of imprint and status that Davidson has established for herself in this team. So I figured it was important for us to kind of update everyone on the inner workings of the end of the USWNT PA and everything that goes on.
100%. And I also like to highlight Tierna Davidson. It's already shaping up to be like a really big year for you, making her return to the pitch.
Oh, she got engaged, right?
Got engaged, you know, and now she's got a new role with the PA. Everything's coming up, Tierna. You'll love to see
and
it.
she was a leader, throughout college, right? At Stanford, won an NCAA title. She was U.S. Young Player of the Year, U.S. Soccer's Young Player of the Year. Like she's been a leader and she's been in those roles. So it's a natural progression for Davidson. I'm excited to see kind of what else is to come for the PA, for the U.S. soccer, and for Davidson for sure.
Yeah, love to see it. And like we mentioned, congrats also to Sauerbrunn and Dunn for their extended term. Speaking of Crystal Dunn, we got kit fashion we got to talk about, and we've got some cool images to share with everyone. If you're joining us on our YouTube live today, Nike going ahead and releasing their Women's Footballing World Cup collection and the teams that they are partnered with. So there's multiple national team programs that had their kits introduced over the course of this week. United States getting their home kit released, the Drip Kit, essentially. I think people are referring to this. Let's have some takes. I mean, I want to hear it in the chat. You got to give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Everyone likes to hear and have the kit fashion discourse, so we're bringing it on here as well. I'm into it. I like it. I like the Drip Kit. I think but I'm someone that's a little more chill. I think when it comes to the kits, doesn't take much. I'm not someone who shies away from maybe some like just sort of a simpler kind of design and things like that. But I think what makes this kit for me are all the little different gold accents on it. I like the gold Nike swoosh.
Yeah.
I mean, they get to have their, they get to have their World Cup crest on it, but I also really love the gold stars on this as well. I think that's a nice little touch to have in this kit.
Yeah, we're getting a lot of thumbs up. A lot of I likes it. A lot of I like it. It's growing on me. We even get a sideways thumb, so like a half and half. I'm gonna say.
Okay,
Get it? I don't know.
I respect that. And
I do too.
It's kind of like it's fine. Like,
yeah, I like this one too. Meh. Other country kits are better. James, I agree with you on this one. Like, I like the gold accents for sure that you talked about. I think it's a cool idea, like the drip kit. It does look like splatter paint, paintball, whatever it may be. It's a little too fun for me, which like I like having fun, but also like we're going to the World Cup. Like
you want to have business.
This is like, yes, this is all seriousness. I like the drip kits. I do. I think they're super cool, but it kind of reminds me of like the warm-up kits for previous with like the blue and the red that are like splatter paint that we saw. Love that for a warm-up kit. For a game kit, I just want it to be a little bit more serious, but I agree. I like it. And then we also get the blue kits as well, which this is like Nike through and through with the blue design. And I like the little accent at the end of the sleeve. I like this one. I do. Yeah. I like the blue.
I know we don't have like a full, I don't think we have an image right now of the full effect of the away kit, because the blue kit is essentially supposed to be their away kit, but I love the pattern on the end of the sleeves, and it's reflective of the socks that they're wearing as well. And I like the pattern throughout it as well. And I'm such a simp for blue. It's my favorite color. I'm just like, that's so basic, but like I like it. And
so pretty.
I feel like does this maybe lean into more of like the business, like the clean?
I love this. Okay, I love the blue. I love the blue. It's got really cool accents. Honestly, the blue kit with like the red USA logo in the top corner, you can see. Fantastic. Super cool to me. It pops. It's got good style to it. I like this one a lot.
Okay. All right. So like that was gonna be my follow-up. Like if you had a preference, if you have a preference of the two, and it sounds like the blue might be your fave. And Lucy's do like the blue. SD Miller also likes the blue. I love it. Everyone's engaging with it and what we're talking about. But I mean, it wasn't just USA who had their kits dropped. I mean, there's England who had their kits dropped as well. They've got a kind of a light blue going on with a geometric pattern. We got a great image of Lauren James up there taking a look at all of the cool patterns on that. We've got Canada's kits as well. Let's talk a little bit about the geometric pattern for Canada's kits. Yes, thumbs up.
I love this. I think this is super cool. For those that are just listening as a podcast, their red kit is geometric shapes throughout the kit with some of the shapes making up a maple leaf, and those are a little bit darker. They stand out, but it's really just red and black with mostly red. I think it's very cool. The fact that they incorporate the maple leaf. I like this. Got CONCACAF representing here for sure.
We love to see it, and we love to talk about it. Let us know if you've got a favorite of the Nike kits that were recently released. Cool kits for the co-hosts as well. Australia and New Zealand part of the reveal and the lineup. There were several teams that had their kits rolled out with Nike, so they're all coming out now that the World Cup is just months away. So take a look at all of the cool different designs that have dropped. Let's keep it with CONCACAF though. We talked a little bit about Canada's kit. We want to talk a little bit about CONCACAF Player Awards to close out the episode. You can vote on these awards. There's a fan vote on CONCACAF.com for CONCACAF Player of the Year. The nominees: United States, Alex Morgan and Sophia Smith, the two nominees for Player of the Year. But there's also others that we have to acknowledge. Mexico's Alicia Cervantes. We've got Jessie Fleming for Canada, Khadijah Shaw for Jamaica, and Melchi Dumornay for Haiti. You love
Massive.
to see it. We are so excited about that for the young Dumornay. I mean, you can look across all these players, I think, and make a case, really.
I know. Yeah, I agree completely. I think Jessie Fleming, I mean, this one's big. I mean, out of Chelsea, she had a headline performance this year, all over the place for Fleming. I mean, but a lot of big names here, a lot of big names, as you mentioned, Dumornay out of Haiti, like historic year for the Haiti women's national team and the run that they went on during CONCACAF Women's Championship and everything that they've been through. I mean, I like that. I like this a lot, but it's all CONCACAF, all these awards and these player awards, they're all fan voted. So you can go to CONCACAF.com, cast your vote as a fan. It awards for a percentage of the votes, but hey, every vote counts. So if you're particularly passionate about any one of these players or any one of these nations that you want to see win, get an award, go to CONCACAF and vote. And no, they didn't tell us to say that. I think that everyone should vote. People are so passionate about these awards and whether their player or their nation doesn't win. You guys have a say in this. Go vote. Yeah. Go make your voice matter.
Yeah, I love to vote. Voting's great. That's a wrap for us today on A3. We just want to remind everyone, though, that it is an international break. And so that means there is a break in play for NWSL as well, because the United States women's team is in action. Mm-hmm. They've got games coming up against Ireland on April the 8th and April the 11th. So we will be back with international United States women's national team previews and recaps. Okay, but that's going to be it for today on A3. Thank you all for listening to Attacking Third. Download, follow, listen to us anywhere you get your podcast. You can watch us too. Subscribe on YouTube to get alerts for whenever we go live at youtube.com/Attacking Third. And we'll be back with more this week. For Sandra Herrera and Lisa Roman, this was Attacking Third.